This sitting is resumed. Prior to the suspension, we were order number 1, and we shall revert to order number 1. The honourable member for St. John.
Mr. Speaker, today I took 21 flights of stairs to occupy this space in this humble chamber. And I'm humbled by the opportunity to be here among peers representing the constituents of St. John. First, I would like to give thanks to the Father for providing me with an opportunity to be here. Secondly, I want to again give thanks to those persons in St. John who felt it necessary on the 24th to provide me with an opportunity to represent them in these hollow chambers. Now, if we are to believe that the voice of the people is really and truly the voice of God, then on May 24th, there was thunder all across this country. And I would wish to say, Mr. Speaker, that the only song that came close to that was the sound of home drums beating in St. John on May 24th. So I am privileged today to represent those persons in St. John because I believe that it is right to have someone from in the heart of St. John come forth to represent St. John. But I rise today as well to support the measures as outlined in the budgetary proposal by the Prime Minister, because a lot of what is contained in that particular document in the budget will benefit persons in St. John and by extension the wider Barbados. And to be specific, I speak to the 5% increase in wages and salaries that will come, because I have persons in St. John as well who are grappling with the difficulties of what happened in the past. And as I take my place in this chamber, I can still hear the chatter of a grouping who was here before that pushed this country at the brink of going over the cliff. So again, like I said, that 5% wage increase will benefit persons in St. John and by extension the wider country. The addition to the non-contributory pension, the move from $155 to $225, we understand that in these times it is difficult to make ends meet. And for any kind of increase, wages or pension is a plus in this time. So again, I salute the budget in terms of providing that opportunity for persons to take home more money. The removal of university fees is something that I know will benefit the constituents of St. John and again, by extension, the wider Barbados, because I have felt the pressure of that personally, where I have 2 daughters who are now struggling with a collective fee of $80,000 because of what happened before from that particular grouping that I referred to earlier. And I'm aware that there are a lot of persons in St. John who would have worked at a level to reach university standard, but that journey was stymied because of the fee. So again, I embrace the fact that come September, those persons in St. John who aspire to have a university education will benefit from measures outlined in the budgetary document yesterday. So for that, I am grateful. I support the document. The trust loan is something that, again, will benefit St. John, because I am cognizant of the fact that jobs will be hard come by in the next couple of years or so. So the reality is that entrepreneurship is one of those things that will be necessary in terms of persons in St. John and Barbados finding meaningful employment. So I'm very, very pleased that the trust loan will come into being. I hope that a large percentage of the young persons in St. John, and not only the young, but other persons in St. John, will take the opportunity to benefit from this particular initiative that is being put forward. All of yesterday and the day before, we're getting calls about when this particular initiative will be triggered, and I'm hoping that it will be triggered very, very soon, because again, there is that reservoir of untapped talent in St. John that must be harnessed, and one of the ways that it will be harnessed is through this trust loan that will provide an opportunity for those persons to start their own business in St. John. So this particular measure is very, very dear to me. The introduction of safety officers, social workers, and guidance counselors. Now, for the last 20 years, I have walked the corridors of youth work in this country, so I'm acutely aware of the issues and the problems that are facing our young people in Barbados. And I know that an initiative such as this one will benefit not only the young school children, but also parents who will have some sense of security, knowing that measures are being put in place to take care of needs, and in most cases, some of the social problems that we see in the school setting that teachers are not equipped to cope with. So the introduction of the safety officers and the social workers, because I too have a grounding and a background in social work, so I am aware of how this can impact. And like I said, I'm standing here to represent St. John, and I know that these are initiatives that will benefit those young persons. The 24-hour service at the Randall Phillips and the Sir Winston Scott. My only concern, Mr. Speaker, about this is that I have a brand new polyclinic in St. John, and I would have hoped that this particular measure would have extended to St. John as well. But I know that in time it will reach St. John. But again, because of the circumstances that we have found ourselves in as a country, and I know that payment of doctor fees are sometimes very, very prohibitive, that this measure will benefit those persons who do not have the means and the funds to be at the polyclinic, at the doctor on a regular basis. The upgrading of the A&E department. I have had opportunities or interaction with that particular department, and I know for years it was actually a nightmare to be going to that particular place to have service. It was almost a little degrading to be waiting overnight for medical services at an institution that was constituted to do exactly that, to provide relief for those persons who are less fortunate in our system. So the fact that we have now moved to a stage that attention will be paid directly to upgrading the facilities is a plus. And I know that those persons in St. John who would have vested that vote for me to be here will also be pleased that this initiative is being looked at. The additional buses and garbage trucks is really something that in the constituency of St. John, it is required maybe now more than ever. Because I have routes in St. John, Sargent Street, Martins Bay, College Savannah, Society. All of those particular routes, we spend X amount of hours, up to 4 hours in the bus terminal waiting on buses that when they do reach in half an hour's time, when they exit the terminal, they break down on the road. So any assistance as far as this particular one in terms of the additional buses is a plus for the constituents of St. John. So I welcome that. The road repair program that is being promoted in the budget, again, it seems as if a lot of the initiatives in the budget are targeting St. John, and I welcome that. Because there is a belief that the road network in St. John is next to none in this country. And the reality is that we have 2% roads that are good in the constituency in St. John. And I know that any road repair program that is coming to the country will also visit the constituency of St. John and provide relief for those persons, including myself, who have to traverse the whole constituency on a regular basis. So the road program that is coming is a big plus for the constituency of St. John. The eradication of the pit toilets. This is one that is a major, major initiative, because in 2018, I believe that none of us should probably have to suffer the indignity of being the holder of a pit toilet, so to speak. So the eradication of this particular scourge on the landscape of Barbados is a major, major plus, Mr. Speaker. And I am aware that in order to do this, that jobs will be generated, and there is every possibility that young persons who, again, might source the trust loan to start their own business might be the same young persons who are contracted to get rid of some of the pit toilets that are currently in the constituency of St. John. And the rapid roof repair program, being someone from a background in architecture, being an architectural draftsman as my training, I am aware that a lot of the roofs that we see across the country will not withstand hurricane strength, hurricanes in this, as we approach the hurricane season. So any opportunity to remodel houses in St. John or the whole country is a major plus, because I am acutely aware that houses, the way how they're structured now, will not withstand those 90 miles per hour and up winds that will hit this country. So the reality is that being a first-time MP, it provides an opportunity to be a part of this process, to be a part of a process that I know is geared towards moving Barbados to another level. And I know that my colleagues in the Barbados Labour Party are focused, totally focused on one particular job, and that is to move the country forward and move the people of Barbados forward. So again, it gives me great, great pleasure to be a part of this team, to be part of a team that I know will spend long, long hours sitting down, putting together initiatives that will benefit the country. Yes, there are some measures in the document that will probably be a little difficult to handle in the initial stage, but as a country, I think that we can go past that together. The fact that you have a government that is prepared to hold the hands of persons who are living in Barbados, a government who's prepared to speak to the people in Barbados and let them know from the onset what is coming, the difficulties that we're facing, the fact that, yes, we have been left in a mess because of that grouping that I spoke to before. The road is not easy, but we would have started the process yesterday through the delivery of that budget. And I'm sure that every single member of this team will move forward knowing that the measures in the budget are carefully crafted in a way that will move Barbados from where it's at and help the process of growing. And I am aware that in St. John, it may be a little more difficult than the other constituencies, because for the last 60 years, we have been just treading water in St. John, just treading water. And this particular budget now is providing an opportunity for those persons to move forward out of the water and stand and begin to run. So when I rise today in this honorable house to speak on the behalf of those persons in St. John, I speak with the sure knowledge that contained in the budget, contained in the cabinet of the Barbados Labour Party, are persons who are working and have the best will of not only those constituents in St. John at heart, but the country as a whole. So my contribution here today, like I said, is one that, I was told that this was an impossible dream. But like I mentioned earlier, the fact that I was able to climb those flights of stairs mean that other persons in St. John will have an opportunity as well to aspire to do such in the future. Because as I have said before, this journey was never ever mine. And the fact that I was given an opportunity to serve, it is my intention to serve with the best ability that I possibly can for the next 5 years or so. And being my first speech, it is almost surreal to be here, but I know, I'm fully aware that going forward, the necessary persons are in place to guide the process in terms of how I treat to this particular journey. Mr. Speaker, I'm obliged.
Honourable Member for St. Michael Northwest.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, sir. Please engage me, sir, to take this opportunity to express my gratitude and love to my beloved constituents of St. Michael Northwest. I wish, sir, to say thank you to them for giving me the opportunity to serve and to remain a humble servant to them and the people of Barbados. Sir, it is a blessing to be here this afternoon, to be a part of history that was created on the 24th of May, 2018. And to be a part of the Barbados Labour Party team led by the Member of Parliament for St. Michael Northeast. And sir, it gives me great pleasure to be a part of that history and to be a part of that team. Yesterday, sir, Madam Prime Minister administered a pill for the betterment of this country and the people of Barbados. And that pill was administered to correct the illness and the diseases caused by the former Member of Parliament for St. Michael Northwest, along with the Member of Parliament for St. Michael South, along with the former Member of Parliament of St. Michael South, and may their political souls rest in peace. Sir, I'm very happy to see the back of the Democratic Labour Party. And sir, it is with deep regret that I have to experience the fact of seeing our beloved country being destroyed by a government, the previous government, that wants to blame the Barbados Labour Party for mismanagement. But yet, instead of making wrong things right, they did everything that was wrong, including printing of money, mismanagement, corruption, just to mention a few, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I am not here to be a part of the bandwagon to point blame or to even walk in the footsteps of the last government. I'm here, sir, to join hands with the Member of Parliament for St. Michael Northeast, and her team to make wrong things right and not to dwell on the damage done. And sir, I stand here in full support of the budgetary proposals delivered yesterday by the Member of Parliament for Northeast. And I can honestly say, sir, the measures taken yesterday were long overdue. Yesterday, what was done was way better than the increase of taxes by the last administration. Being able to give and take so that ordinary Barbadians can live was the way to go. Yesterday, allowed Barbados to breathe for the first time in 10 years. The future is bright, Mr. Speaker, sir. The future is bright for Barbados and the people of Barbados. And I can say that the 5% increase for public servants is a good sign for the public, for the people that work in the public sector, especially some of my constituents who are also employed by the public sector. The fact that Barbadians no longer have to worry about the distasteful NSRL tax is a sign that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And that was a tax that crippled a lot of small businesses in this country, especially a few entrepreneurs within the constituency of St. Michael Northwest. A tax that caused the cost of living to increase. And I really have to say thank you to the Member of Parliament for St. Michael Northeast for abolishing that tax. Mr. Speaker, sir, it was heartbreaking for me to see the number of non-contributory pensioners within St. Michael Northwest falling by the wayside, not having any form of income. And the former representative and Minister of Finance for that constituency, sir, refused to help those poor people at that point in time. But found it more easy, sir, to give away duty-free concessions and what's not to certain businesses at a time when the Treasury needed money and in a time of need. And I fully support the fact that these same hotels now have to pay a tax to help make up for those concessions given away. And sir, I have to say thank you again to Madam Prime Minister for giving hope to those non-contributory pensioners. Thank you for giving an increase from 155 to 225 so that these pensioners will be able to put food on their table. Sir, I don't plan to be long, but I want to pledge my support to the Barbados Labour Party team and the Prime Minister of Barbados to do what is best for Barbados and for the people that I represent. And, sir, there is a biblical quote, Psalm 30, verse 5. Weeping will endure for a night, but joy will cometh in the morning. And I am happy to see the joy that came on May 25th, 2018. The joy giving us the opportunity to make life better for one and all. And I wish to quote Prophet Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord, to give you a future and For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, the plans for not disaster, but to give you a future and a hope. I oblige, sir.
The honourable member for St. Michael South.
Good afternoon, Honourable Speaker. Good afternoon to the members in this distinguished chamber. I rise this afternoon to do three things. I want to thank the people who are responsible for my being here. I want to speak to this budget that I completely and totally support, and then very quickly talk a little bit about the blue economy that I have the honor to be the minister for. First, let me thank those who are responsible for my being here. I want to thank God, as I always do. I want to thank the Honourable Prime Minister who introduced me to the people of St. Michael South. And I want to thank the people of St. Michael South who have elected me to be their duly constituted representative for the next 5 years. And it is in that context, sir, on St. Michael South that I wish to begin. I made a promise when I started my process that I would completely, first of all, remain true to the people of St. Michael South. And the reality is that in the last 5 to 10 years, the name Baylan and Brittensill and Charleston and Braffis Gap and Paddock Road were never mentioned in this chamber. And that I intend to mention those places all the time as I represent the people who chose me to be here. So it is with that in mind, sir, that I am speaking to the member for Christchurch West firstly, to say thank you, because I know you will attend to the flooding that we experienced in Paddock and in Browns and in Clarks and other parts of the Baylan and in Brittensill. It is with that in mind that I want to speak to the member for St. Michael South East, because I know together we will develop programs in fisheries and so on to help the young people in the Baylan and in Brittensill. I want to speak to the member for St. Michael East. As Minister for the Environment, I know together we will work to clean up this country, and definitely so for the people of St. Michael South. I want to speak also to the member for St. Thomas. And
please don't forget the term honourable, sir.
The honourable member for St. Thomas. Honourable by any stretch of the imagination, always. But I know together, ma'am, we will bring a voice for the voiceless through the people's assemblies that you have the honour to lead. And the honourable member for St. George South, who will also be responsible for creating the trust loans and bringing empowerment to people, sir, who need to be empowered in this country to make sure that small business people have a place and a role in the new Barbados that the Barbados Labour Party intends to create. But sir, I listened this morning to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, and I agreed and disagreed at the same time with some of the things that were raised. And before I speak to the budget, let me say I agree that the last administration, having raised $22 billion, did nothing to bolster the economic and productive capacity of this country, and did little in the social sector. But that this government, this new Barbados Labour Party government, will never make the mistake that the old government made, and that we will make a priority the social services sector, as you have already seen, that even in the face of the challenging economic times, The budget is filled with a lot of goodies for persons who are living below the poverty line and find themselves in stringent circumstances. I also wish to agree and disagree with the idea that Barbados, that I believe too in the strength of our democracy. I do. But I believe having won a mandate as large as ours has been the practice in our party, the honourable member will recall, that we allow disagreement, but we do not stand for disengagement. And though I have disagreed several times with other members on my side, we will continue to practice the democracy that is known to be associated with the Barbados Labour Party government. So the people of Barbados can rest assured that this democracy is as healthy now as it has ever been. I recognize the challenge faced by the Honourable Prime Minister. I do not know one in public life as prudent as the Honourable Prime Minister is. And to come to deliver a mini-budget at a time when circumstances are as they are must have been tough by any measure. I recognize the balancing that took place within the budget. The idea that we have at the same time to raise taxes, but to look after those who are marginalized and those who feel as if they're not part of the development process in Barbados. But there have been 4 words that I've heard her use constantly since we came to office. Promise made, promise kept. And that shall be the philosophy that guides this Labour Party. The things we said we were going to do, we will do, but in a manner that promotes this country and does not hurt the most vulnerable while doing so. I also recognize that there are some people, having looked at these social media pages, there are some people who find themselves, not a lot, but some, a little bit frustrated with the idea that a new government should introduce the taxes that we had to introduce. And I think that their discontent in many ways is legitimate. Although I believe that the target is the wrong target. It's not the Barbados Labour Party government that brought this country to its knees. It has been the last administration that has done everything possible to ensure that Barbadians could not have a proper standard of living. And it is the Barbados Labour Party that is seeking to correct it. And I know as well that it is difficult and that there are some things that we have to do. I have a constituent, he broke his hand about a year ago. I talked about him during the campaign. And he now has to have his hand fixed. And I've been trying to have it done at the hospital, but I will have to speak to the minister. But I found that it has been very difficult for him. So through a private doctor, we are now having conversations. But the private doctor has said to him, look, your hand is healing, but it's healing badly. I will have to break it over. I have to take a piece of you from somewhere else to replace this part, and then give your hand time to heal. And he said, well, I understand. It's not you, doctor, who caused me to be injured in the first place. And I understand that you now have to do what it is that you have to do. And I think, in large measure, that is the way Barbadians approach life. That we have been a dignified people is known. And that we will take when we trust our government is known. And I think they recognize that there's some things that we have to do to move some things from other places to heal. And that we may have to re-break the bone so that the island and the country could heal properly. But I think they recognize that we are doing so for the interests of the people, and that the interests of the people remain our primary concern. I, sir, have been a public servant most of my life. I joined the public service when I was 21 years old. I spent 18 years as a public servant. I am very happy today that even though circumstances are as they are, that this government has brought a 5% wage increase for the public servants of this country because they deserve it. And I want to thank them because by and large they have held strain and they have kept the faith. And you will recall, because it wasn't so long ago, sir, that a message was sent from the former Prime Minister through an emissary of sorts to the people in the trade union movement that there will be no conversation whatsoever about a pay raise. and that this government, as the first order of business, has sought to give the public servants a raise fills my heart, and I'm sure it fills their heart too, with joy. And I am also aware that there are some people who were somewhat concerned about the fact that we've had to put in place measures to ensure that we could fix the sewage system. And in total, some say it comes to $45 or so a month, $1.50 a day. Around $45, $47 a month. Compare $45 a month to not being able to educate your children at the university. To having, as I have had to experience in my constituency, young children waiting for hours at the bus stop, not being able to get a bus. The indignity of Barbadians having to drive through sewage on the South Coast. And walk through, of course. The indignity of Barbadians having to go into the yard to use a toilet. And I am very thankful that in this budget we have sought to address not one, but all of those things. So, sir, I am very, very, very thankful. And I believe that the Honourable Member for the City, because I'm informed that there's a list of all the persons who currently have pit toilets, and the Honourable Prime Minister, when we get around to that conversation, will ensure that the members in St. Michael South who now have to use a pit toilet no longer have to do so. And in fact, there are several houses as you drive along Dayton and other areas that may not look so from the front. I'm sure many others experience it too. It may not look to you as if these people are using pit toilets, but that they have pit toilets. I am aware of an elderly woman who went to use the toilet in the night and fell. I am aware, I have a constituent who has a disabled child, that he must lift into the bathroom to use, into the yard to use the toilet. And he tells me when it rains, the toilet floods and it floods his entire yard, and that he can't use it. So there are things that Barbadians shouldn't have to be dealing with in a 2018 Barbados, when I agree with the Leader of the Opposition that this last administration raised the largest amount of tax revenue of any government. So we intend, sir, as a matter of priority, to fix a lot of those things. So while I am on my feet, I also wish to address the idea of the blue economy, because I am the minister, and the one question that I've been asked more than any is, what is the blue economy? What is your job? My daughter, joking to me, told me that my job now is to clean the beaches. It's part of it. But I think all of Barbados has to make Barbados cleaner than Barbados is. And in fact, I look forward to when the Honourable Member for St. Michael East speaks, when he speaks about the cleanup that we will be bringing to Barbados, because Barbados should remain the cleanest place in the Caribbean. But you are aware, sir, the last poverty study showed that almost 1 in 5 Barbadians are living below the poverty line. You would also realize, sir, that in Barbados there are very few people who are now entering new and emerging sectors that are doing well. And that in some cases what we need to do as a government is not to try to duplicate what is being done or reinvent the wheel, but to facilitate business in Barbados, not only for those who already have, but for those who don't have. Not only for businesses that already are in existence, but for businesses that we can't even begin, as we stand here now, to conceptualize. Because a new Barbados must have a new way of doing business and include new people. And I say all that as a precursor to talking about the blue economy, because I believe, sir, we have an opportunity before us if we were to do what it is that we are supposed to do. And in a quick definition, according to the World Bank, is that it's anything comprising a range of economic sectors and related policies that together determine the use of oceanic resources and to make sure that they are sustainable. So it's about the sustainable use of the ocean, to ensure that we protect the sea, basically, while we try to make some kind of economic activity and revenue from the sea. And I believe that we can do so. And I know most of you, many of us who obviously have constituencies that involve the coast, would see what is already happening on many of our beaches. In many cases, there's not as much beach in Barbados, beach space, as there was years ago. The sea is encroaching. And a lot of that is due to the fact that the coral reef is dying. The reef is dying. A lot of it is due to larger issues of climate change that impact on Barbados that in the last 10 years we have chosen not to respond to. There are many things that are happening that are affecting the world, and many things that are now affecting the Caribbean, and many things that are affecting Barbados that relate to the sea, but yet we have not been able or have chosen not to address them. And so sir, I propose that we need to have a development strategy in large measure that involves the blue economy. I know my colleague minister for St. James Central, the honourable member, and I have already had conversation about it. And I'm sure as we spread out, it's going to become a part of how we bring Barbados out of the economic doldrums that Barbados now currently finds itself. As a matter of fact, you will recall, sir, that CDB, the Caribbean Development Bank, just last week or a week before held a whole week of activities around how to finance the blue economy. And they made the suggestion that there is now a new space, a new area for growth, and that there's so many possibilities. So when people speak of the blue economy, sir, the one word that I want people to walk away with thinking is possibility. And that this Barbados Labour Party intends to exploit all of those possibilities, to give the average Barbadian a chance at making something of themselves, because the last administration failed desperately to do so. So we are talking not only about protecting the reefs, we are talking as well about food security. We are talking about reducing our dependence on fossil fuels. We are talking about not only using traditional methods of fishing, but creating new methods for fishing. We are talking also about new ideas for the port, and there's got to be a time when we have a conversation around the functioning of the Barbados port to make it much more efficient than it currently is. And sir, we intend to have that conversation very, very soon. So yes, we have to be strict guardians of our heritage. There are things in the past that we've done. I remember as a boy when the fisherman passed through, he was saying, fish, fish, $5 for flying fish. You could get a flying fish for 20 cents. When last you see a flying fish for 20 cents? Because the reality is you no longer get that quantity of flying fish. And there's a reason for that, sir. It is not just happening. A lot of our fishing and fisheries, sir, a lot of the things that we came up with as boys knowing, and young ladies and girls, knowing as the way, sir, a lot of these fish are dying, or the resources dying out. And a lot of that's because in some cases we've overfished. In many ways the technology has changed and we haven't kept pace with the changes in technology. I am told that there are some fishermen who still don't have the requisite technology to be able to follow the fish. I mean, there are a number of things. We've seen recently the impact of the sargassum seaweed. And a number of the fish that used to come to Barbados find it difficult to survive with the weed. And we also know that there are some people who continue to overfish. And so we're seeing dolphins now that are being caught very, very young and very, very small. And if you catch a young dolphin, what you've done, sir, is to prevent that dolphin from growing up and having a whole set of other dolphins. So at some point, again, we may have to have legislation to prevent people from overfishing, to make sure that we safeguard Barbados, not for this generation, but for generations to come. So, sir, while we have to be strict guardians of our heritage, I know also that we have to be firm craftsmen of our fate. And I recall the Right Honourable Prime Minister for Grenada, Keith Mitchell. He said that we cannot wait for technology handouts, things for people to come and give the Caribbean so that the Caribbean can then make the most of the way things are. We have, sir, as a matter of priority, to use the resources that currently exist in this country to make life better for people who live in this country. And that has to be the way of this Barbados Labour Party, to use the resources in this country to make life better for all who live or choose to live in this country. And those who may live overseas, who have a relationship with this country and are allowed to be part of this country too. Because that is the way of the future for Barbados. And so, sir, I have had over the last few weeks conversations with persons who've been using the sargassum seaweed to do amazing things. There are people who are already converting the sargassum seaweed into methane gas and using it to fuel their cars in Barbados. People who are using it for fertilizer. There are people who are using it for all kinds of things. There have also been people and who've been so innovative that they're using the River Tamarind to make methane gas. Sir, if we are able to produce enough of this gas, we will then immediately reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and immediately reduce the bills that we have in terms of how much foreign exchange we're spending. And I'm sure the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast and the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central would be more than pleased to see us reduce our foreign exchange spending. But sir, there are a number of things, and I think if there's anything that we have to do, it is to believe again in ourselves, and that a lot of the challenges that we are having as a country, things that are simple, how you gonna fix the road, how you gonna do these things that Barbadians have always done, is because in the last 10 years, Barbadians have been separated from their capacity to dream and to believe in themselves. And if this Barbados Labour Party does anything, it must be that we restore the faith that Barbadians have had, not only in the government, but the faith Barbadians have in themselves. That is critical. And there are going to be, of course, a number of challenges. I mean, you don't just change an economy or a mindset overnight. But if there's one thing I know is that we can no longer operate in silos. And you would see so far, sir, that whenever there is a meeting, there is representation across the board from the various ministers. It is something that I hope continues. That all of us meet around the table to discuss matters that are important to all of us. Because traditionally in government, what happens is that a minister then becomes caught up only with his little space, and they start operating in little silos. But if we want to tackle the development problems that face Barbados, sir, we have to do so as a government. Because there is only one government and there is only one Barbados. And so in my ministry, you would find that whenever I'm having a meeting, I bring everybody. Because when we start talking about the blue economy, I'm not going to talk about the blue economy for coastal zone and the blue economy for the port and the blue economy for fisheries. There is only one. And so that has to be the way we address a lot of our challenges. And I know that our fiscal space, sir, is tight. I know that we currently don't have a lot of resources. But I believe, sir, the way to tackle this is through partnerships. We have to have new creative partnerships now with the private sector. We have to start working with our partners in the private sector. In fact, even though I hadn't called for it at the time, there were a number of people in the private sector, sir, who reached out to me and said, Minister Humphrey, how can I help you tackle this sargassum problem? There have been people of all kinds who have been working with the ministry to address the sargassum problem. And I don't intend to call any names, but there is a man in the constituency, I think it's Christchurch South, who's been doing wonderful work cleaning Miami Beach by himself. And there are things that we could do as a country, sir, to make sure that we make Barbados better for all Barbadians. So when I say to you, sir, that I think of the blue economy, and the word that comes to mind is this one word, possibility, I do not say so without adequate thought. There are so many things that we can do to make Barbados a better place for all Barbadians. And I do not think it's not been the Barbados Labour Party way. In fact, it's not really been the Barbadian way at all, to allow any challenges to prevent us from making the most of the opportunities that present themselves. And so, sir, as we try to tackle the issues, we have to do so reflecting and engaging at the same time. We have to be in the action and out of the action at the same time. The Prime Minister makes it clear that there are some mission-critical issues that we have to address. But at the same time, we have to be moving forward on our transformational policies. But that's the only way, to be thinking about things and doing things at the same time to make Barbados better for all. And so, sir, as I close, I want to read a poem by Frank Collymore. I nearly say Frank Collymore. By Frank Collymore. And I do so, sir, because, I mean, I do like poetry, but I do so, sir, because I believe he captures what it is that we can do with the sea. It is called A Hymn to the Sea. Like all who live on small islands, I must always be remembering the sea. Being always cognizant of her presence, viewing her through apertures in the foliage, hearing when the wind is from the south, her music and smelling, the warm rankness of her tasting and feeling her kisses on bright sun-bathed days. Sir, we must always be remembering the sea. And so for many Barbadians who haven't taken the opportunity to learn to swim, in this budget we are offering, and in our manifesto, the possibility of people having a relationship with the sea. But beyond that, sir, I believe that the fortunes of our countries is now tied to us being able to make better use of the resource that God has given us. And so, sir, as I close, I want to thank the honorable members in this chamber not only for listening to me, but for taking my many calls and emails over the next coming months as we form relationships to make sure, sir, that we are able to make the most of the sea. And also, sir, because when I return, perhaps in a year or so, with the number of programs and policies that we intend to do, that I believe will bring some economic benefit to this country, you will see, sir, that even though I stand here now speaking about a blue economy that for many is a novel idea, that Barbadians will come to appreciate, sir, that there's so much to be done with the ocean and that there's so much we can do if we continue to do it together. Thank you, sir. I am obliged.
The honourable member for St. Philip South.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise this afternoon in full support of this budget before this honourable chamber. But before I do, I crave your indulgence in allowing me, first of all, to thank my God for giving me the energy, the strength, and the ability to endure what I thought was the most exciting, though hardly fought, election. I also want, sir, to thank the good people of St. Philip South for reposing their confidence in me, thereby giving me the opportunity to share with this honourable chamber some of my thoughts on where I think Barbados should be going, and indeed giving my full support to the honourable member for St. Michael Northeast, the Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have heard the talk, I have walked the walk, and I have listened. What stands before Barbados is so devastating that we can continue to talk all the talk we want and take no action and remain at square one. We may also, Mr. Speaker, sir, look to a future that says though the path may be rough, though the journey may be tough, we have to walk. And so, Mr. Speaker, if there is one thing that makes me proud as a Barbadian today, it is the assertiveness, the aggression, and the astute management that the Honourable Prime Minister has brought to leadership in Barbados, where we are seeing a complete transition from what transpired in Barbados over the last 10 years to what has happened over the last 2 weeks. And for the last 2 weeks, we have seen initiatives brought before this honorable chamber that will not only address the fiscal problems in this country, but speaks to a new dawn in Barbadian existence, an existence that demands of us the realities of a 21st century. Mr. Speaker, sir, we went on a campaign trail for a 24th of May election. And what is it that we said at that time? We said, as a team, all 30 candidates working as a team, though we have now been reduced to 29, but such is the game of politics. We said that there are certain mission-critical items, mission-critical issues that we have to address within the very short term if we are going to deliver Barbados from what we understood to have been on the brink of economic disaster. Mr. Speaker, sir, we said that there will be a removal of the NSRL. We said that students will be able to go back to the University of the West Indies this coming semester without having to pay tuition fees. We have said that there will be a removal of road tax. We said the sewage project problems will be addressed. We've said that we would increase non-contributory and contributory pensions, and that we will use a trust fund loan scheme to make sure we can empower ordinary Barbadians. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have told Barbadians that we are prepared to eradicate pit toilets in this country. I have seen be laid before this honorable chamber yesterday a commitment to all of those things that we have said we are going to do. It is a commitment that I ground in honesty in politics today. And so, Mr. Speaker, whilst I do understand that in political life, when you don't sit on the same side, you may not want to share the same philosophy. But I do also understand that deep down in your bosom and running through your veins will be the same philosophy that you have lived all your political career. So I do understand the concept of an opposition. I also do understand, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the people of Barbados have said to us in very clear terms that they are tired of the political conversations that permeated Barbados over the last decade. The people of Barbados have said to us that because you have demonstrated clearly that you are more capable than any other political party to lead this country forward, we are giving you full support, and therefore they gave us all 30 seats in this honorable chamber. I am indeed pleased to be part of this team. But if we are going to get serious about taking Barbados forward, I think the time has come where we have to make sure we stay focused and put our country first. Now, what stands before all of us is what we all know. Because this conversation didn't start yesterday. This conversation didn't start with the Barbados Labour Party forming a government on May 24th. This conversation started way back in 2010, when we recognized that this country has been allowed to go adrift, and that if we did not do something to stabilize this economy, the one thing that we cherish most, we might have lost, and that is our currency peg. We in the Barbados Labour Party said to the people of Barbados, fear not. The Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast made it abundantly clear that she will do whatever it takes to make sure the currency peg of Barbados is protected. And so we have a choice. We have a choice in determining whether or not we want to continue to play the political games or we have to determine right here and now, Mr. Speaker, sir, what is best for Barbados. And Mr. Speaker, if we're going to criticize the introduction of a fee on fossil fuels as a replacement for road tax, then we have to make sense. And when we speak and don't make sense about the things we are saying, then we're speaking in a vacuum. Mr. Speaker, I have had the privilege of being educated at our university at the master's level in business. I understand business concepts. I understand finance. Mr. Speaker, sir, paying road tax has been a problem in Barbados. You've got people who drive around vehicles in this country who do not pay road tax, not because they don't want to, but simply because they cannot afford to. But they are putting gasoline and diesel in their vehicles. As a smart government, and a government that is thinking of a way forward, we need to understand the issues that confront people. And Mr. Speaker, sir, if a man is asked to pay $1,600 up front, $1,900, $2,000, and when that tax falls due on an occasion where he still has children to support, he still has a mortgage to pay, he still has other bills to take care of in terms of his utilities in the supermarket, that man invariably, or that woman, will default on the road tax. If, Mr. Speaker, we have reached the point where we recognize that we have better options available to us in terms of capturing all of those who participate in using vehicles on our roads, that we should explore those options. And how do I personally see the introduction on a fee on fossil fuels as a replacement for road tax? This is simple. For me, you may want to purchase a new four-poster bed. You may want to purchase a living room suite. You may even want to purchase a brand new refrigerator or flat screen TV. But you do not have the upfront cash. And so therefore, you go into one of the furniture stores and you take out a hire purchase arrangement. And you pay little pieces at a time. And you don't feel the weight. This to me, sir, though not the same, gives people the ease in their pockets where they're paying in a very seamless manner as people are taken advantage of when they go to pay piecemeal on any commodity they choose to purchase. And so, Mr. Speaker, I feel that we ought to dismiss any rhetoric with regard to a new way, a working way of capturing people into the system and getting them being able to pay taxes that they would have otherwise defaulted on. And I say that is a new initiative. It is one that should be applauded. And I think all of us in this honorable chamber, Mr. Speaker, should applaud an initiative like this simply because the country needs the revenue if we are going to close the fiscal gap. Mr. Speaker, I recognize that during my sojourn in this election, I spoke to the empowerment of people of Barbados. I spoke, sir, to giving an ordinary Barbadian, a person from working class communities, the opportunity to get a leg up, that start that he or she may need to empower his or herself and move on to being part of the ownership and economic structure of Barbados. And I have said, sir, that the initiative that was placed in our manifesto as a promise to give people startup loans where they have not to go through the rigors of going to a bank or credit union or one of the traditional lending institutions to be able to access funds to start a business or to inject capital into a business that is already in existence, that I would fully support. And that we, after 2 weeks, can come before this honorable chamber and say to Barbadians, here is your chance, here's a leg up, be part of the ownership structure of Barbados, we are going to give you the startup capital, I fully support. And I say to all the people of St. Philip South, who have given me the opportunity to participate in this debate, that you will not be left out of any of this. And that all future debates that I participate in this honorable chamber, Mr. Speaker, sir, you, the people of St. Philip South, will be part of my reason for contributing here. Mr. Speaker, if I can empower the people of Barbados, if we can empower the people of Barbados, our job becomes less. And I fully endorse the statements made by the Prime Minister, the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast, when she says many hands make light work. And that if we all can replicate across our constituencies that opportunity for economic enfranchisement of our people, then, sir, we will significantly reduce this problem that stands before us. And before you know it, we can also move to significant reductions in taxation, because when people are empowered and there's money to spend, you get economic growth and you get more money coming into the Treasury. Mr. Speaker, I have the good fortune of being entrusted with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security in Barbados. Let me say to you, sir, that I stand up to the task of making sure that Barbados and agriculture in Barbados will be transitioned from the past stigmatization that permeated agriculture across Barbados. And that my mission, sir, is to bring a completely new brand image to agriculture in Barbados, where our people would start to understand the tremendous amount of opportunities that stand before them as very low-hanging fruit, just waiting to be plucked. And Mr. Speaker, I have started off my ministry by first engaging all those who are at the ministry, but particularly getting a clear understanding of where agriculture in Barbados was at prior to my being at the ministry, where we would like to go, and how we are going to get there. I, sir, have had consultations with the sugar producers of Barbados. And the conversations we had been very cordial, very meaningful. And so I'm pleased to report to this honorable chamber that whilst we still have some financial work to do in terms of fine-tuning where we're going to go, that I am proud to state, sir, that we are looking to the increase of sugar production in Barbados to as much as 20,000 tons. We are significantly below that at this point in time. And that we have people knocking on the doors who are prepared to help us to transition from bulk sugars to specialty sugars. And so there's a conversation that is already going on, sir, to help us save significant amounts in foreign currency by way of being able to export specialty sugars, but more importantly, reduce the loss we're currently taking in producing bulk sugar. Mr. Speaker, I've also held conversations with people who are interested in fancy molasses. and that if we can expand the production of fancy molasses in Barbados for the distilling and production of rum, then we will also help to significantly reduce our foreign currency, our food import bills, and increase our foreign currency. Mr. Speaker, what stands before Barbados, as I see it, is an abundance of opportunities that were there prior to the last decade, but were not taken advantage of. I have numbers that say to me that our imports stand at 8.5 billion in 2016, and that our exports around the same time were a mere 4.98 billion. Mr. Speaker, this is not sustainable. Mr. Speaker, Barbados in 2017 imported $684 million in food. We had an increase from 656 million in 2016 to 684 million in 2017. The numbers are not trending downwards. But what is it that we are importing? We are importing vegetables, $23.3 million worth in vegetables. We are importing fresh fruits, $26.6 million in fresh fruits. Mr. Speaker, we have to move to food security. We know that in Barbados, we can produce most of the vegetables we're using. Whilst we may be challenged with some of the fruits, we do know that we can produce many of them. But sir, I also know through my own research that we can produce almost anything under the sun with the use of technology today. And that when you look at the various models that are out there, we can produce any single thing that we want to eat in Barbados. Mr. Speaker, I believe that this is the direction we're going to take agriculture into in the very short future. Mr. Speaker, when I speak to opportunities, I speak passionately about how we can give to Barbadians the economic enfranchisement that we've heard all the conversations taking place about as far back as the 1960s. And that we have now a wonderful opportunity to unlock opportunities for Barbadians through the Ministry of Agriculture, where we speak to giving our farmers an opportunity to expand the production of black belly sheep for the increased production of perhaps the healthiest mutton in the world, and to give them the opportunity to be able to increase the production of rabbits, which is a healthier meat, I am told, than even poultry. And Mr. Speaker, if we are going to take seriously the opportunities that can bring this country out of the financial morass that it finds itself in at this time, I say to you that we ought to move at pace to make sure that we not only take advantage of the initiatives and the opportunities that the Honourable Member for St. Michael South spoke of when he spoke of the blue economy, but right here on our shores, that we can take advantage of the opportunities in agriculture with the use of technology and the removal of the stigmatization that agriculture is the woman or man with a dung basket and a hoe. But that it is more than that. And that right there in your office, you can plot and plan significant amounts of food production in Barbados that does not drive you into one single field. And that is what we need to get across. I've made it my business to speak to those in my ministry to let them know that agriculture in Barbados must never be seen after my time there as a thing of the past, where dung basket and hose was the only image you can see, but that empowered wealthy people are what you would see going forward in Barbados. Mr. Speaker, this brings me to the point of growing medical marijuana in Barbados. And Mr. Speaker, we have an abundance of opportunities when it comes to unlocking and giving people a chance to grow medical marijuana in Barbados, simply because of the value chain that follows. And if we are going to look to that which gives us a suitable fit for the advancement not only of Barbados as a place in the Caribbean that was once referred to as the gem of the Caribbean, but that for us to give opportunities by breaking new soil and shifting our paradigm to embrace the new things that stand before us, then, Mr. Speaker, I say in our oils and in our teas, and when you go to the masseuse, the oil that you're going to be rubbed with, and the ointments, and all the other value addeds that you can get, including the treatment of diseases, cancer being a main one, then we have no time to waste in making sure that we can get this medical marijuana going. And so we have to look at the legislative framework. I understand that the responsibility will fall between myself and a minister with responsibility for health, the honorable member for the city. And I do understand that we can move and forge ahead with these opportunities, that we will no longer have to spend our time griping about whether or not a tax is too much, or whether or not you should trade off your child's education. I speak to children as our future. And it has been my position, Mr. Speaker, sir, that we have lived our lives, and that whilst we journey to the departure lounge, there are those who are lining up at the check-in counter.
The honourable member has 5 minutes remaining.
Thank you, sir. And what we must do, sir, is to make sure that those lines are not too long, and that the queue provides for them a comfort, that when they have finished the check-in process, they will journey long, far away to a departure lounge where they have been able to pave a future for the generation to follow them. Mr. Speaker, I have no doubt that we will do better. Mr. Speaker, I strongly support the measures before this honorable chamber. I believe that they are bold measures. I understand that we will get some criticism. What I do not take is criticism for the sake of criticizing. And Mr. Speaker, I say to all Barbadians, particularly the constituents of St. Philip South, that we will overcome, and that I, as your representative, will make sure every man is part of what Barbados holds in the future. We're all on board. I'm obliged to you, sir.
The honourable member for St. George North.
Mr. Speaker, I have been asked to speak at this time, and first of all, I want to thank the people of St. George North who have returned me to Parliament over and over again. I have been here for almost 24 years now. And Mr. Speaker, every time it seemed to get better and better. My last occasion, I was able to get, I think, about 80% of the votes. And to my mind, that speaks to representation that I have known for a long time. And I want to thank them over and over again. And I also want to thank the government for being able to produce in this country history that have never been done before, where government was able to capture all 30 seats. And that speaks to our manifesto. It speaks to the confidence that the people have within our party. And it speaks to the candidates that we were able to put forward in the last occasion. And I want to say too, Mr. Speaker, that when I listened to the member for Christchurch East Central this morning, and then St. Michael Northwest, I've felt very confident that you have a great team that will be able to put forward the program of the Barbados Labour Party in this chamber. And when you compare what we had in the last parliament, I see a breath of fresh air that is dawn in these chambers, and I believe that these young parliamentarians will do Barbados proud. I believe, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, that this chamber comes at a time where the people of Barbados needs to put their confidence in a new administration. I have listened carefully to the Prime Minister and member for St. Michael Northeast delivering a budget yesterday afternoon that was replete with promises that were made in the last general election, and in which we have kept faith with the people of Barbados. And, Mr. Speaker, the people of Barbados asked us to do one thing, basically, to return confidence to this country, confidence in ourselves, confidence in a government that will do the right thing. It is not always that we will get it done the first time, but I believe that air of fresh air will be blowing across Barbados over the next course of this term. And I can see a bright government that will be doing the things that the people have voted for. The people voted for confidence, and they voted for good governance. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, that these two ingredients, more than anything else, must be the hallmark of this administration: confidence and good governance. And of course, we campaigned in the last election. We told the people of Barbados that things were dread, things were on a path that we could not be, that was not sustainable. We told the population then that there was corruption, perceived corruption in governance, and that a new Barbados Labour Party government will do better than the Democratic Labour Party, and we were voted for that. The people gave us 30 seats. They gave us 30 seats, Mr. Speaker, and sure, we have lost one. And you know, Mr. Speaker, and I want to reflect on this because it is important that I do so at this early juncture, because I was a member of the Barbados Labour Party, Mr. Speaker, from the time I was 21 years old, and that's a long time. I was here for a long time, Mr. Speaker, and I was recognized by the late Prime Minister Adams, and I went to the Foreign Service in those days, early 80s. And the Barbados Labour Party has done great to my mind. The Barbados Labour Party has made me what I am today. I was in the Foreign Service under Adams. I came back here, and Mr. Speaker, I ran in '91, and I lost narrowly, and then I won from 1994. But the Barbados Labour Party was good to me. And this election, many people thought that I should be somewhere else. And I said to the people of Barbados this one thing: I was elected as a member of parliament first and foremost. I was elected as a member of parliament, and therefore I believe that I have to represent my constituency as a member of parliament. There are people who felt otherwise, but I want to say to the people of Barbados, and the people of St. George have said to me this one thing: you must represent us in the best way possible, whether it is the back bench or the front bench. And I want to give the people of St. George this assurance, that I will stay my ground, I will do my best, and I will always be faithful to the people of St. George who have elected me. And I will always be faithful to the Barbados Labour Party who have done good for me. That's the key. I have seen, Mr. Speaker, and I want to make this clear because members need to understand this. Members need to understand this. I wasn't here when Prime Minister Sir Harold Bernard St. John sat on the back bench. I wasn't here when Sir Louis Tull, former minister, sat on the back bench. I wasn't here when ministers were fired and was sat on the back bench and they went nowhere. The member for St. Andrew sat on the back bench. The member for St. Michael North sat on the back bench. St. James South sat on the back bench. So, and we, Mr. Speaker, at Christchurch West, former Christchurch West, we have to understand that we were elected as members of parliament. The Prime Minister has the right to elect whoever he wants as cabinet minister, but at the end of the day, all politics begin here. We are all equal in this chamber. And we, Mr. Speaker, must understand that in a democracy, yes, in a democracy, we all have our say, because democracy can be linked to many things. There are many traditions, I understand. You know, I believe in democracy too. But I remember that I wrote a paper when I was at university. I did political science at university too. And I remember a paper that I wrote about corruption and power. How absolute power can corrupt absolutely. I remember that. I also wrote one on democracy and how when not to cross the floor. Because I believe that if I am unhappy with my party, I have a duty to resign and go back to my people. That's my philosophy. I believe in that. But that is my democracy. And when people ask me what I should do, I simply say that my constituents tell me to stand my ground. Stand my ground and represent us to the hilt. And I want to say it to all and sundry, I want to say it all and sundry, that at the end of the day, we have to represent our constituency. And I will be asking questions. Of course, there's some ministers who have already asked me for some names from my constituency to do things. There's some who have not. But of course, I'll be asking.
You haven't asked me as yet.
I'll be
I remember.
Mr. Speaker, and I hope that we will be asking, and if it happens to be that the Speaker will have to come on the back bench to ask questions, we will do it. We will make sure that the people of our constituencies are properly represented to the hilt. Already, I have asked, and of course, we will form a trio right here in the back bench to ensure that the front bench do what our constituents want. And I have said to the last government, and I'm saying to this government too, that at any day, all politics is local. That we have to represent our constituency the best way we can. We have to represent them to the hilt. It is true that we believe in the democratic process, but we were elected as BLP parliamentarians, and we are standing our ground and representing from this backbench as we see fit. And we will do our best to ensure that the manifesto pledge that we were given, that it is done to the honor and glory of this country, Barbados. Now, let us look at the budgetary proposals that were proposed yesterday. We felt, Mr. Speaker, that the first order of the day was to fix the economy. That's the very first thing we told the people we will do. We told the country we will look at the NSRL and we will remove it. We fought a campaign on the removal of the NSRL. We talk about the sewage problem in the Christchurch. We talk about that. We talk about pit toilets, returning university students to university. We talk about that. I talk about the confidence already, and of course, the roads and problems that we have in the infrastructure of Barbados. We talk about all these things. And we felt, and I still believe, the last government was insensitive, because I was here on the other side, and I said to the government then that once you break the legacy of Barrow and Adams in terms of human capital, that it is a problem. And when the last government signed the deal not to pay for tuition fees for university students, I felt badly. I almost cried that day. I could not believe a government, a black government, could come in here and with the stroke of the pen, the former member for St. Michael Northwest felt that students who are going to university had to pay. I am saying that act alone made me feel very badly about the government, made the people of Barbados feel badly, and of course they deserve what the treatment that the people gave them. They deserve that, because if it's one thing, Mr. Speaker, that this island has is human capital. We do not have any natural resources. We do not have oil and silver and gold and so on. We have people. And for years, we were told that it is the people that made Barbados proud. We were told that. And when the last government signed, the Minister of Education sat mute and said nothing. And that's why I felt it was my duty to go to Christchurch, to the constituency of Christchurch East Central, and I told the people in no uncertain term that that was a backward step. I said in this parliament that the last Minister of Education had the opportunity to revolutionize Barbados and education and did nothing. And we have to return. And I'm very proud of the member for St. Michael Northeast when she got up and said the students of university will go back to university as of September. We told the country then that we had to make choices. We have to make choices. And it is our choice. And I want to tell the country this. It is our choice that our children will go to university, and of course, free of tuition. Not that we are not saying that they should not pay anything. We're not saying that the small fees they have. But I went to university and I didn't pay. I didn't pay that lump sum. And I'm saying my children and your children from here henceforth will now start paying university. And I thought that the member for Christchurch East Central dealt with that very clearly, and the people of Christchurch East Central dealt with the last Minister of Education in the best way possible. I felt so. And of course, Mr. Speaker, I am a teacher, and I know when people marking X's, those X's that the people gave to mark against the Democratic Labour Party was the X, not only of frustration, but they were conscious of the fact that they were going to do whatever they can to see the end of a regime that has taken the legacy of Barrow and Adams and thrown it through the window. I thought that was the worst thing that government has ever done. And we have returned it. And I want to say to the member that I am proud of, if there's one thing If there's one thing that we have done right so far, is to ensure that those students return to university in September. That is one thing. I also want to say to the people of Barbados, yes, we agree that there'll be belt tightening. There must be belt tightening. So when people talk about the last government, I heard the present opposition leader talk about tax. We raised taxes similar to what the last government. Let me make a distinction here, though. In 2008, the Minister of Finance, late David Thompson, increased taxes by $108 million across the board. Taxes upon taxes upon taxes. Right? They did it. And we criticized them, yes, but they did not give any increase of salaries then. They did not give any increases to the people of Barbados at the time. They took taxes. At the time, in 2008, we had $2.7 billion in foreign reserves. This country, when we came to office 20 days ago, we have no foreign exchange. Can you imagine $2.7 billion in foreign exchange with what we had in 2008, compared to what we found in just a couple of days ago? Less than $200 million. So we have to build resources. We have to build this country again. And therefore, to ask Barbadians to share the burden, we are not going behind their backs and saying to them, that's shared. We told you in the last election that things were tight. Everybody out there knows. We're asking people to share the burden. That's basically what this government is asking the Barbadian public to do, to share the burden. That things are rough. We are not saying to them that they have to pay increased water rates. We'll have to pay increased water rates. We know. But we have to share the burden, and this is the point that the member is saying. Let us share the burden for the time being. I do not believe that it's going to be forever. So when the member of Parliament for St. Michael West says that it is the same thing over again, that we are like, the word used, tentacles, that we are octopus, that is very offensive. It's very offensive. That we are taking and giving back. We are taking and giving back. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to the members of Parliament, we come here to debate. We come here to debate. We have to call a spade a spade. I am saying that I have seen it too, but we can't agree with everything that is being said in the papers. Someone sent me that nonsense last night too, that we take it from one hand and give it back the next. It is not true. It is not true. We told the country that we have no foreign exchange. What it is that we want to tell the people, things are tough. We have to make tough decisions, but it's only for 3 years. Did we not say that? It's only for 3 years. We have to make tough decisions. And I want to say to those people out there who are listening to me, we have to make tough decisions. It's either that or you have the dollar devalue. It's either that or you do something else. Or you don't have the children back to university. We have to make what it is. I have children, Mr. Speaker, and I'm proud to say at my age I still have young ones. So I got to make sure that my children go to university. And their children too. Some of you people in here don't have children because God did not bless them. Fine, it's okay. I might have for me and them. You got your fair share. But the point is, Mr. Speaker, the point is that we have to ensure that Barbadian students go to university, and we have to ensure that people across Barbados pay their fair share of taxes. And nobody likes to pay taxes, but we just remove road taxes, and people are saying, okay, I heard the member, Michael West, talk about that if you $100 in fuel per week, you pay $620 per year. So if you have to pay, but you don't have to pay the lump sum up front, we remove road tax. So road tax of $400 have been removed, yes, but at the same time, you pay, if you can buy $100 of gas every week, why can't you pay a fair share? If you want to take your motor car and run up and down, fine. But there are people, we have just said that we're going to improve and increase bus service in Barbados, so that we spend $25 million on bus service. And I tell you, I was Minister of Transport years ago, and we felt at the time that a reliable bus service people can take the bus and park their car. They can pool their cars and drive on the bus service. A reliable, I used to live in Toronto, and I never traveled by car from upper Toronto to down Toronto. You travel by train, and you travel by bus. A reliable bus service is planned for by this administration. A reliable bus service where people can take the bus from 4 o'clock in the morning till next morning. How many countries in the world have this? Only Democratic Labour Party, we are going backward. Only Democratic Labour Party administration in the last term. There were only less than 60 buses on the road, and you are paying a man out of Trinidad $22,000 a month plus supporters. We got to cut out that crap. We have to cut out and bring back good governance in this country. We have to be able to put a system in place where we do not have perceived corruption, because we said to the people, and this way I said that we have to hold the government feet to the fire, that we must ensure that every contract that you enter into can be held up to scrutiny. We have to be able to do this. We cannot tell the people of Barbados whole strain where the government goes wild. We cannot do that. We must be able to ensure that the government feet to the fire, as well as Barbadians as well. We are asking Barbados business people to hold strain, to go with us. We are asking the ordinary householders to pay something more so that we can bring back some form of stability to this country. And that's what we are asking the Barbadians to do. So therefore, to compare us to the last administration is, in my mind, is not fair at all. It's not fair at all, because the last administration for 10 years did not give an increase in salary, which this administration has done. We have kept faith to the people of Barbados. A 5% increase. We know money over there are saying it could be better, yes, but we cannot give any more. But we know that the cost of living, if you look at the cost of living, because the NSRL had increased the cost of living by almost 7 percentage points. The inflation rate in Barbados, when the NSRL was applied, went to about 7.5%. And it is true that we are below, and I hope that the Minister of Finance would bring, let me look at it, will tell us what was the inflation rate over the last year when the NSRL was imposed. And if it is true that you're giving the civil servant 2 percentage points below the inflation, we always understand that you keep faith by giving the inflation rate the same to keep them balanced. But nonetheless, even if you have given something, you have given them something, and 5% increase may not be the best that we have at this point in time, but it's the best that the government can do. It's the best that the government could do, and I believe that in the near future, because this government has shown that they're willing to negotiate. This government has shown since they came to office that they're willing to meet with the social partnership. They have shown that they're willing to listen to people. And I'm sure this is only for the year 2018 to 2019, as they understand it. But the process of negotiation will continue for the civil servants. And not only this, we have increased pensions, and I heard the member talk about it. We have increased the non-contributory pension, and also the contributory pension will increase as well for that stage of people. So that I believe that this government has taken a leaf out of former Barbados Labour Party administration to keep faith with the people of Barbados. And once we do so, the people in Barbados will have confidence. Now, confidence, again, is important. Confidence is important. The people of Barbados believe that we will do well, and we cannot let them down. And once we keep faith with the people, go back to the people, talk to them, ensure that whenever there is a hard decision to make, let us talk them through. There will be hard decisions. As I said, there will be persons will not want to pay taxes at a high rate. Everybody wants to pay no tax at all. But we have to ensure that something is paid at this time. I want to say to the government that the time has come for us to look not only at our productive capacity. I've heard the Minister of Agriculture spoke about that today. We definitely need to look at agriculture in this country and how we produce and what we produce. And he talked about returning the viability of sugar to 20,000 tons. This is a good sign. We have to be able to do so. We have to be able to get tourism right, because we had a lot of tourists come to this country, but the receipts were down. The receipts were down. We have a great tourism product right here in Barbados, Mr. Speaker. But something has, you have a tourism product, but you have not been able to create any avenues across the country, any new recreation parks for tourists. You have not been able to generate, Mr. Minister of Tourism. You have not, my great friend, the member for St. James Central, what it is that you're doing in terms of providing relief for those hoteliers on the South Coast. We want to hear about that. Can you imagine a government bringing people here in the midst of sewage? That's what the last government did. We have to be able to put that behind us urgently. And I want to hear from the government, if that can be done before the crop over season. What is happening? We have to spend all the energies that we have to ensure that the sewage project on the South Coast is eliminated, because the stench of that has gone not only throughout Barbados, but throughout the world. So we have to hold the Minister of Tourism. The Minister of Tourism, he must hold his feet and make sure he does what he has to do. We want to make sure that he goes to work every day, to take off his jacket, to roll up his sleeve, because he was the man who talked about filth in the sea. Remember that, Mr. Speaker? You remember he talked about that? He did not call it filth. Mr. Speaker, we know what he called it. we do not want to remind him, but it's very unparliamentary, but we want to tell him that from this back bench, if he does not ensure that he clean up the South Coast, that we remind him that he has to roll up in that as well. We remind him.
Your Honourable member has 5 minutes remaining.
How much more, Mr. Speaker?
5 minutes.
So, Mr. Speaker, we believe that members must come to work and do some good work. And my colleague, the member for St. George South, I had left him for the last because he has done very well. He has topped the polls this year. So it means that he has to continue to give over 80%. Over 80%, we expect nothing else from the member for St. George South. He has a great responsibility. He's in charge of entrepreneurship. He has to ensure that that legislation comes to Parliament soon, to ensure that small business people get a leg up. I understand that the government is providing $5,000 loans, and that is a good policy. And the reason why it's a good policy is this, there are many persons who cannot get small loans from banks. And you see credit unions, Mr. Speaker, I want to say to you that credit unions are only credit unions by name, and most of them. They treat their membership very hard, and members have to go and beg for loans. Members have to literally go and lie prostrate for loans. Their members, most of them, they have membership and they treat them very badly. If you don't know somebody in credit union, that's one of the reasons why many people have turned to the banks. Credit unions need to change their philosophy. And I'm going to call a spade a spade. That's why we have to bring in this money, $5,000, $10 million is going to put, $10 million, a fund was set up by this government. $10 million was set up to give $5,000 loans. You know why that was set up, Mr. Speaker? Because there is a vacuum. Whenever there's a vacuum, somebody has to be filled. And this administration has agreed that persons in the non-traditional businesses, like barbers, like butchers, like small entrepreneurs doing pig farming and so on, can get a $5,000 loan to get their business off the ground. Finance is the biggest hindrance to small businesses, and we want to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that from this administration. Of course, that's why I said to the member for St. George South that he has a big responsibility. He has to come to work early and do some work to ensure that the people of St. George South and North, of course, it starts with North and South first. You're going to start with the center and branch out. All my pig farmers.
What's the point of order, Honourable
You're
Member?
not going to give it.
Is insinuating that this member for St. George South does not come
I
to work
don't say it
early.
as a point of order, please. I do not say it as a point of order. Do not say it as a point of order.
I am not saying that my friend don't go to work. I know he goes to work every day. But of course I will not say on the floor probably if he go what else he does. But he goes to work every day to do work. And I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, that we want to ensure that from the center out, that he can give loans to small business people who are deserving. I am not telling him to form a situation where people do not deserve it. Once you are in a business and you have the wherewithal to pay back, that those funds be given as soon as possible. I'm not sure if the money was released to him yet, but I hope that the legislation can come and the regulations can come in very soon order. Mr. Speaker, I'm obliged to you.
The Honourable Member for Christchurch East.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to expand upon my support for the measures enunciated by the Honourable Prime Minister yesterday. I must say that unlike a number of my colleagues who walked up the steps of Parliament for the first time, for the last 5 years I've been accustomed to walking up the steps, but I always turned right. So I got the chance to walk up the steps and turn left. And I must say that these accommodations suit me a lot better.
Must be a good, Honourable Member, it must be a good feeling.
It is a great feeling, sir. Mr. Speaker, following on what was said before, and because it is the right thing to do, I want to thank God, because we leaned on him a lot as a party, as a parliamentary group, and even in my campaign team, in the hard times that were occasioned by the last bruising campaign. So I want to thank God for bringing me through. I also want to thank my family, my mother, my father, my wife, and the good people of Christchurch East who left out the low road and instead went high. Went to a highway this time. I'm not one to make a lot of promises, but I will make this promise that at the end of this term, they will see their faith justified and will be happy to keep me in my now accustomed residence. Mr. Speaker, Barbados knew it was bad. We all knew that things were bad. Most of us did not know how bad it was. Based on what transpired over the last 8, 9 years, and in particular the last 2 years, I don't think there was any Barbadian who did not appreciate that we were in dire straits. I think perhaps the only Barbadians who did not appreciate we were in dire straits were those in the well, I can't even say the no opposition, were those who previously formed the government of Barbados. It was almost unbelievable that a government could be so out of touch with what was going on in the country and the suffering that the people who formed their constituents were actually going through. We knew it was bad, but we found that it was worse. Many people have complimented the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast on her presentation on Monday. Many people spoke about how comprehensive a mini budget it was and how she managed to touch every aspect and spread the burden around with the promise of the benefit being spread around as well. But if we stop to think that the honourable member had less than 2 weeks from assuming office to the delivery of her mini budget, then we can appreciate what a truly remarkable feat it actually was. After the swearing-in ceremony, I understand that the honourable member and the finance and economics team hit the ground running. And meetings were had after the swearing-in. I went to celebrate because it was a big day for me. But I understand my poor friend and those in the economics team didn't have the chance to celebrate. So while I was having dinner with my family and a couple drinks, they were burning the midnight oil, scratching paper, and burning out batteries in the calculators. You need to move to solar calculators. But the point is, no time was wasted in getting down to the business of the people, the business for which we were elected and the business for which we received such a resounding show of support on the 24th of May. There's some adjustments to be made. There's going to be some difficulty. It's going to be hard. But if we're honest with ourselves, we all knew that. We all knew that hardship was coming. But what is heartening is that this was not dealt with in the way that the last 10 budgets before it dealt with it. The solution was not the easy task of simple taxation and nothing, pain, 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 and no gain. I think that this has been the most comprehensive budget we have seen in the last 10 years, and perhaps one of the most comprehensive budgets ever delivered in this August chamber. And coming out of it, there's a sense of collective relief. It was not as bad as some expected, but more than just words and innuendos and name-calling and blame-making. There was a sense of hope, a sense of these measures can actually work, a sense of belief in the plans articulated by the Honourable Prime Minister. And therein lies the stark difference between Monday just gone and the last 10 years, when the previous Minister of Finance articulated his budgets over and over. I don't know what sense anybody else got from them. I don't know what sense you pulled from it, Mr. Speaker. But to be honest, I didn't believe that we were going anywhere. You heard the budgets, words were thrown out, figures were thrown out. At the end of it, all you took away from it was more taxes. That's all you took away. What we saw on Monday was a complete examination and dissection of the economy of Barbados. What was wrong, what can be done now, what we hope to do later, and what we hope to achieve by the belt tightening now. So the Prime Minister took Barbadians into her confidence, and that's a lesson that we all need to take away. Barbadians are a robust and enduring people, and we can get through almost anything once we know what it is that we have to do. Honesty worked very well for us in the general election campaign, and we started with honesty as a government. That honesty was brought to the fore on Monday as the Prime Minister laid it bare. She didn't hold back. She put the cards on the table and said, this is what we need to do. Some people complained about paying $1.50 a day per household onto the water bill to help deal with the sewage situation. But let's put this in context. $1.50 a day may yield, I'm not good at maths, $45 a month on a 30-day month. But compare the cost of $45 a month or $1.50 a day against the cost of the sewage continuing to flow in the streets of Barbados. Compare the cost of $1.50 a day against the cost of the destruction of the Graham Hall Swamp. Compare $1.50 a day against the cost of the tourists fleeing Barbados for other destinations where there are clean beaches and clean streets. Compare the $1.50 a day against the loss of hope and the loss of what we expect Barbados to be, what we are accustomed to it being. If we compare it in that way, although it is a burden that we have to bear, it could be a lot worse. I myself, Mr. Speaker, I got a dose of reality. I will say that when the Prime Minister called me to say, Honourable Member, I have decided that I'm going to give you the Ministry of Energy, I said yes. I said yes, I could do a lot with the Ministry of Energy. She said, and you'll be the Minister of Water Resources. I almost choked on my coffee. I said, Madam Prime Minister, you mean the South Coast sewage problem? And she said, yes, you can do it, you can do it. Actually, you have to do it. Is there anything you want to say? What could I say? I welcome the opportunity. But I came thinking that I had a South Coast sewage treatment issue to deal with. And by day 2, as we were struggling to come to grips with the fact that the South Coast problem was way worse than what we actually expected, I was then informed that, well, you all know about the South Coast because the sewage is actually coming up on the streets. But there's a problem with Bridgetown as well. And the Bridgetown plant is in a worse condition than the South Coast plant, but you're just not seeing it yet. Now, that is the difficulty I have. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition said that at some point in time, we're going to have to ask ourselves, not just how did we get here and who put us here, but what are we going to do about those who put us here? Because some of what we are seeing is nothing short of criminal, Mr. Speaker. It cannot be that Barbados has been run to its lowest low and the Barbadians who put the last government in did not know. It cannot be that there are debts being reported for ministries and almost all of the debts, which were quite considerable, that people were operating on were understatements. And when the actual extent of the government's indebtedness was made known, everyone was in amazement. This level of deceit cannot happen in public office, because if you refuse to accept the reality of what has been going on and the full extent of the problem, then you cannot start to fix it. So we've had a situation where the problem existed, the magnitude of it was denied or downplayed, so equally the fixes that you would have to do if you recognize the magnitude were not done. The last government wasted time, precious time. We did not have to be where we are now. The old people tell you a stitch in time saves 9. A stitch in time saves 9. A former Prime Minister used to say, face it and fix it. The one thing I have learned very quickly, and I had no romantic ideas of what government was. I figured it was going to be a lot of hard work. But the one thing I learned very, very quickly is to acknowledge the issue in front of you and take steps to deal with it. Because I refuse at the end of the next 20 years, when I finally leave this chamber, to be haunted by the specter of having not acknowledged and Barbados hurting in the way that it is hurting now. Mr. Speaker, Graham Hall is under threat. We knew that there was sewage in Graham Hall. I think everybody knew that. But what we did not know, that we found out very early o'clock, was that the levels in Graham Hall Swamp are now at the levels they should be at in the height of the rainy season. Because the swamp is blocked, the outflows are blocked, the swamp can't purge itself, the trees are dying. If we had 3 inches of rainfall, 3 inches, Mr. Speaker, then those 3 inches would cause the Graham Hall Swamp to overflow the whole way down the south coast. Not sewage coming up in the streets. The Graham Hall Swamp would burst its banks, and you will have sewage flooding everywhere. That is the reality of what we face. That's the reality that the Honourable Member for Christchurch West deals with his constituents. And he does call me every single day, multiple times a day on it. That is the reality that the Honourable Member for St. Michael South faces and deals with, and the Honourable Minister of the Environment. Now, it should never have gotten to that stage. You have to ask yourself, what was the last government doing for the last 5 years? What were they doing? If you are paid to do a job and you happily take your full salary every single month, then you're obliged to go and do the job for which you've been paid. If you have not been doing that job, then you were taking money under false pretenses. So I side with the Honourable Leader of the Opposition in this point, that investigations have to happen and somebody needs to be held accountable. And where the neglect or the malfeasance is in the criminal realm, then for the first time in Barbados, we need to see people being prosecuted for what has happened. What we are facing now must never be allowed to happen again. I said it many times on the platform, and I say it now as well. I am a loyal Barbados Labour Party member, but I am even more loyal to the people of Barbados. We know all of the things that were done wrong. We know all the things that were done wrong. It is now incumbent upon us to fix the things that were done wrong. And I don't know the position of my colleagues because I have not asked them. My position, like the Honourable Prime Minister, is that as of today, I'm not pointing back on who did what before me. I am dealing with what is in front of me, and the things that fall under my ministry, I will own them and try to fix them. I cannot measure myself against a bunch of abject failures. I do not want to validate their existence by comparing what I'm doing to them or referring to them as part of the problem. We all know what the problems are in Barbados. We are at our lowest low. No pun intended. But it gives us the opportunity to rebuild, and rebuild in the direction that we actually want to go. Barbados now has a new architect. Barbados now has new contractors. Right? We are going to build a mansion for Barbadians. We are going to get rid of the termite-ridden house that is toppling to one side. And we are going to give Barbadians what they deserve. And it can only be done by hard work. I am heartened that in the first 14 days of our forming the government of Barbados, that every minister that I have called on so far for assistance has given it to me. Every single minister. In particular, the Minister for the Environment. I have been given, my colleagues call me constantly, and when they call me, I try to work with them, and I try to give them the assistance they require. We have had meetings upon meetings upon meetings. There has not been one day that we have not put in about 18 hours since we formed the government. That is what government is supposed to be about. It is about dealing with the issues and doing whatever is necessary to fix them. I got As I turned up at the Bridgetown sewage plant one morning at 2 o'clock, because work is supposed to be going on 24 hours a day, so I just went to show moral support. As I turned up, one of the men said, Mr. Abrams, oh Lord, you're trying to kill me? I said, no, I'm not trying to kill you. He said, no, Mr. Abrams, understand. We understand what it is that you want. We understand how critical it is, but nobody has ever given us a timeline to do it by. So the people in Barbados that we depend on to carry out the mandate that we give, they will do it for us. The average Barbadian knows what is at stake. The average Barbadian can see it as well. They are suffering in the same way that we are suffering, and they want to do their part. What has been heartening coming out of this campaign and this election is the fact that every Barbadian wants to do their part. The most unlikely people have been volunteering assistance. People have been asking what is it they can do. I mean, you're getting people offering to teach lessons for children. Everybody wants to do their part in whatever way they can. There's a rebirth in Barbados. There's a new feeling in Barbados. It is a feeling of hopefulness. It's a feeling of a resurgence of national pride. It is a feeling that we are all on board for something great. That we are at our low, but a change is here. A new beginning, a restoration of Barbados, and everyone has bought into that. And for that, I want to congratulate all Barbadians, all. We showed the difference straight off the bat. I remember, as I said, I take today as my last day to do this, so I'm going to do it. I remember the last 2013 election, the slogan, no layoffs, no sell-offs, no tuition fees. I remember that. I remember a manifesto by the then government that if we look at it now, we would struggle to find a promise that was fulfilled. And actually, we can look at it and see the promises that were made knowingly in vain, with no intention of fulfilling them, and that never came to fruition. Compare that now, Mr. Speaker, against the last BLP manifesto. It was a manifesto not produced on a whim. It was a manifesto that was years in making. It was perhaps the most consulted manifesto in the history of politics in the Caribbean. We all 30 of us in here, we all sat down days and nights. I remember the morning where we started meeting at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're going home when the sun was coming up. I have the pictures of certain members in here, neck breaking off, sleeping. I promise to keep those safe, so long as those members cooperate. But we knew what it was to put in the hard work. And that served us well, because it gave us a taste of what our Prime Minister expected from us. And we put out there for the people of Barbados to know what to expect of us as a new government. And we have no choice but to deliver on that. You can't start one way and finish the next. Start right, end right. Start right, end right. But the point is, a number of people talked about our campaign. It was fanciful. We would never do these things. We have been 14 days, now 15 days in government. We talked about garbage trucks on the campaign. I understand that garbage trucks were actually ordered by the last government. That might be 9 months in coming. But steps are being taken now to get garbage trucks into Barbados within the next 8 weeks. That was a campaign promise. We said, like it or not, our philosophy is that Barbados, our most valuable asset is our human capital. And we've gotten where we've gotten as a country by dint of the education and the educational system in Barbados. And for us, a priority, one above most other priorities, was that any Barbadian who was able to manage it should be able to go to university and have their tuition paid for. It was that stepping stone a lot of us benefited from. Actually, in the other place, I had a member that it almost galled me when he used to talk about making people pay tuition fees. Because I remember that I came into UE. I think at the time he was the president of the guild, or up there in the guild. He was, I believe, in his 3rd year. I went through the whole of UE, and I left him there. And I went to Trinidad to do law school, and came back and qualified as a lawyer, and I think that he graduated the same time that I got called to the bar. So, really and truly, the last people who should have been trying to strip tuition opportunities from Barbadian students was the last government. But we said we would reinstitute it. And we said we would do it on the first business day. And effectively on the first business day of this parliament, tuition fees are now free again. Every Barbadian that so desires can go to university. We said the NSRL was a bad tax. We can't say it in one breath and then no follow through when we come to government. We said on the first business day of the new government that we removed the NSRL. And the NSRL was removed on the first business day. We said we would work our hardest. We had set a timeline of 3 months to come conclude negotiations with the unions to a wage increase for public sector workers. A timeline of 3 months. Well, lo and behold, on the first business day of this parliament, we were able to announce that we had reached an agreement with the unions. And the majority of the public sector workers are happy with it, because it may not have been what they wanted at the time, but they as well understood the harsh realities when we came in and the books were open and the light of day was able to shine on the dodgy accounts so that everybody knew what we were dealing with. Well, that created a new expectation.
The honourable member has 5 more minutes.
Starting now, sir?
Starting now.
Okay.
That's correct.
But the point is, it is not that anybody betrayed anybody. With full facts and with full knowledge and with honesty and transparency, the educated people of Barbados who work in the public sector were able to make a determination for themselves that fully informed this is a raise that they can accept. It's not about any traitorous behavior. It was simply the benefit of honesty and transparency. And for that, I applaud this government. We said on the first business day, we're going to lay the new integrity legislation in Parliament. And so said, so done. The point I'm trying to make, Mr. Speaker, that I'm sure that you get, is whereas you had a fictitious manifesto that should have begun once upon a time, we had a manifesto that was well thought through with policies we believe that we could implement, and we've set out to implement them. I do not think that Barbados has ever seen this many manifesto promises fulfilled on the first working day of a government. Mr. Speaker, seeing that you've clipped my wings, I have to now speed through that was my introduction, Mr. Speaker. I have to speed through the substance. The bottom line is, we have the golden opportunity to reinvent Barbados. For all the naysayers who ask where we're going to get the money, and that we don't have any money to do it, the good thing about being out of options is that you are out of options. The good thing in something being a necessity is that it is a necessity. So the money will have to be found to do the things that need to be done. And I ask Barbadians to remember this. Stick a pin and take a snapshot of Barbados at this point in time. At this point in time when the change is about to start, remember where we are and who put us there. And in 5 years, I'm asking Barbadians to take another snapshot and look at where we are then and remember who took us there. I am looking forward. I don't want to look back. I'm looking forward, just to plug the energy sector, to a fossil-free Barbados by 2030. I am looking forward to initiatives that are going to take us out. We can't just look at the old ways. We now have to look at things that save us foreign exchange while creating niche markets and helping to build Barbados. It has to be the transformation of Barbados. When we were young and we looked at Star Trek, and you saw Captain Kirk press the button on a screen coming down, he spoke to the Klingon general. We said that would never happen, but we got Skype. We saw Mr. Spock down on a hostile planet looking at his watch or his hand computer and speaking to the Starship Enterprise. And we said that would never happen. We got smartwatches. Every phone is a computer. What was a fantasy 20 years ago is a stark reality now. So we can't keep bringing 20th century thinking to the 21st century world. And I am proud and pleased to be in a government. I will say that I did not expect to see all of us here. And I could not, the dilemma for me was, as I looked around the last parliamentary group meeting before the elections, I thought to myself, Lord, I can't afford to lose any of these. This is a good team. This is the dream team. This is a team for the ages. I said, Lord, I want all. Maybe it was a selfish hope, but I think the Lord knows best. And I have with me, and the Prime Minister, the Honourable Prime Minister has with her, the best team that we have ever had. Everyone has their expertise. Everyone has their sphere of influence. Everyone has their part to play. So really and truly, with us having the full team that we wanted, we have no excuses to not deliver to Barbadians what they now expect from a Barbados Labour Party government. We need to be serious, we need to be forward-thinking, and we need to be hopeful. We also need to be realistic. And I believe that the budget that was delivered by the Honourable Member for St. Michael North East was all of those things. So I wish, as my final statement, to compliment her on what is a thoroughly futuristic budget, but living in the present, and perhaps the most comprehensive and well-written budgetary presentation that we've ever seen in Barbados, especially considering the time constraint she was under. So as such, Mr. Speaker, I have no hesitation whatsoever in wholeheartedly supporting and endorsing the budget of the Prime Minister. I thank you.
I beg to move the suspension of the sitting until 5:20.
The question is that the Honourable sit-in be suspended until 5:20 p.m. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This sitting is now suspended until 5:20 p.m.